this morning on breakfast, and we know, of course, Ronaldo's hit the headlines at Manchester United in recent weeks for a number of reasons. Wayne Rooney was on breakfast this morning, and he was asked what he made of Ronaldo this season.
There's him and Messi are arguably the two best players of all time. I just think the things he's done from the start of the season, really, and it's not acceptable for Manchester United. And like, obviously, you've seen Roy Keane defend it. Roy wouldn't have said that. Roy wouldn't have said that at all. And it's a distraction which Manchester United don't need them in at time to rebuild. And for Cristiano, just get your head down and work and be ready to play when the manager needs you. And I think if he does that, he'll be an asset. If he doesn't, I think it'll become an unwanted distraction.
What do you make of that, Simon? Wayne Rooney coming from nowhere, really, and offering up, well, I'm going to call out Cristiano Ronaldo for what it is here. I'm going to call him out.
Well, I have to say fair play to him. I mean, you're not going to often get a top player talking about a former colleague. They might have had some rancour in the past, you know, in terms of tournament antics between one another, but they were teammates. And it's sort of the unbroken rule, isn't it? The taboo of talking out against players and doing it from a position of huge influence, because Wayne Rooney is an influential person. Whether you think he's the greatest manager that God ever put breath into is irrelevant. He is an influential person. And I think it's quite refreshing honesty. I don't know whether it's laced with an agenda, but he hasn't held back. He also hasn't held back landing one on Roy Keane. About Roy Keane's observation, because he's basically suggesting that Roy Keane would have never have tolerated that sort of nonsense if Roy Keane had been in the dressing room, and is now making an excuse for it, which is an interesting dynamic as well. So Wayne's not leaving anyone unscathed there, and I quite like it, because I think that's the forthrightness, this closing ranks around the fact that you mustn't say this. The industry taboos are you mustn't do this and you mustn't do that. Everyone must be protected and insulated, and we all must club together. And the only time we'll speak about it is when I actually don't need a career in football anymore. Alan Shearer doesn't want to be a manager anymore, so now he'll speak forthrightly about how he sees things and how he sees the game of football, and you get more insight. There's a balance between having insight as the end user, the punter, the person that's watching the game, the supporter, and the industry keeping some of its enigma and secrets. But I quite like the fact that Wayne has got the courage of his convictions, to use an expression I overuse. Yeah,
as he said there, you know, Roy Keane has been supportive of Ronaldo in recent times when he's been on Sky Sports and elsewhere. But as a player, Wayne's saying Roy would not have backed Ronaldo for some of the truculence we've seen in recent weeks.
Yeah, I
leaving
think,
a game early, etc.
Yeah, I see sort of two sides of it, really, from my perspective. I think whilst you're really disappointed, probably Ronaldo's, you know, attitude at not wanting to go on, that can't be tolerated as a manager or a squad player or in the dressing room. But the other side of that is when he first come in to join Manchester United this time round, people were raving about him being a brilliant role model for the rest of the dressing room and all the young players. And for the vast majority of his career, he's been one of the best professionals that we've ever had in the game. The way he conducts himself, how he looks after himself, the fact that he's still playing now.
That's massively commendable, Stuart. But in recent times, we haven't seen that.
No.
The role model aspect has gone.
No, well, this season, it certainly has. And when I was asked the question back in last summer, what should be the pathway for Manchester United and Ronaldo? Last summer, just gone, it would be part company, because you can't have a player around of his ilk, if you like, sat on the bench, because I don't think he's got that in him. He wants to play every week. See, so they should have parted company in the summer.
I think that the one time that he needed to be a self-starter in terms of being an example and a role model is in a club where Man United was in flux. It was in disarray for several years with a lack of standards. He didn't get a choice about standards when he played for Alex Ferguson first time round. He didn't get much of a choice playing for Real Madrid about what standards he would and wouldn't deploy. He probably didn't get much of a choice about what standards he would and wouldn't deploy and how much of a role model he'd be at Juve. But he did get a choice at Manchester United because the place was in disarray and there wasn't any leaders in there. So what we might have seen is a real glimpse into the character of Cristiano Ronaldo, rather than the character that was controlled by the enormity and size of the environments that he was in. Because Man United was an environment, like I've just said without repeating it, that he had to be a role model. This was it. In other environments, he probably didn't have to, because it's difficult to be a role model in Real Madrid when you're surrounded by a litany of stars and a football club that's as stellar as Madrid. And when you're working for Alex Ferguson, you don't get much of a choice about how you're going to behave. Irrespective of how good you were, Ferguson was the king of that particular castle and everyone knew where they stood. And this is the one time where Ronaldo was probably asked to conduct himself in line with a very different environment that probably didn't have the controls and the discipline in place that you'd expect from a big football club. And he's let himself down. And he's let the image that he wanted to create in other people's minds about when I came here, when I was a young player, I listened to the senior players in the dressing room. I can't believe this culture at Man United of people that don't listen to the senior. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm going to do this. I'm going to walk down the tunnel and not be prepared to play. I'm going to bunk off at half time. And I know there's other things behind it. I know that he's had some tragedies in his personal life, and we have to factor those things into the equation as well. Yeah. But I'm disappointed with Ronaldo in terms of the way that he's chosen to behave at times.
I almost feel a little bit sorry for him, because you got a fella here that's probably conducting himself, whatever ulterior reasons, for 25 years in the professional game, exemplary as a professional, okay? We champion a player that can't go to bed at the right time, can't eat the right food, isn't dedicated to his profession. And all of a sudden, at the age of 32, he decides to be a professional because he sees his career diminishing. He has a good year where he conducts himself in the right and proper manner. And we glorify him as though he's the ultimate professional.
But Stuart, a role model isn't somebody, you know as well as I do, and more than I do, that the responsibility an individual player has is to look after himself, right? So what he's done is he's looked after himself. Now there's been a different calling on him, which is we all can admire someone. You're saying, well, we admire people that don't look after themselves and when they turn up when they feel like it. But he's always looked after himself. Now there was a different call upon him. We need you to look after some other people as well. Set a standard, not just for yourself, for other people.
But he's looking after himself. He's looking after the team.
But that's where he's come up short. And he's always looked after himself because the team didn't need looking after. When you're playing at Real Madrid or the Man United version of Ferguson version of Man United, he just needed to be able to get into that side and be the world-class player that he became. He didn't carry everybody else. In this incarnation, he not only needed to carry people on the pitch, he needed to carry people off the pitch by the standard that he set.
Exactly.
And he didn't.
Exactly. And he didn't, Stuart. Imagine Messi walking out early. Not that it would ever happen.
Don't sit in a Martin Keown chair defending the indefensible.
I don't want to sit in this chair. I want to sit in your chair, but you threw me out of it.
Quite right. To be honest, I think Ronaldo has let himself down in recent weeks and months.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I'm not defending that
before.
I'm not defending that. All I'm saying is, look, don't ever lose track of 25 years of professionalism, and a lot of professionals in our game cannot hold a candle to his professionalism.
Yeah.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.